Today is our 7th Sunday, continuing our look at great peacemakers, true stories from around the world. Our two peacemakers today include Henry Salt, whose writings influenced many individuals, including Mahatma Gandhi, and Albert Schweitzer, a great physician and teacher. They are two leaders who advocated for valuing all life instead of just human life. You will hear many echoes of our 7th principle, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. Much of the dialogue about the leaders is taken directly from the book. Believed to be the first person to advocate of movement for animal rights, English scholar Henry Salt redefined humanitarian to mean one who has compassion for both humans and animals, bringing into common usage the term blood sport. He and his organization helped to end a 700-year-old royal tradition of hunting tame deer. Through these and other accomplishments, Salt sought to cultivate a more humane society and live out his personal credo, the creed of kinship. To a family tracing its heritage to King Frederick I of Denmark, Henry Stephen Salt was born in 1851 in Nainital, India, where he was a year old, or when he was a year old, his parents separated. His father, a colonel in the Royal Bengal Artillery, stayed in India, while Salt and his mother moved to Shropshire, England. There, Salt enjoyed a generally privileged and carefree childhood. As he entered his adolescent years, his intelligence shined, and he was soon being groomed for entrance into prestigious Eton College. When asked by his tutor whether it was wrong to doubt, Salt answered that it was not. Little did he know that he would spend most of his adult life doing just that, doubting societal norms. Admitted to Eton at the age 15 as a King's Scholar, Salt, a gregarious teen, had a knack for making friends and reveled in the camaraderie of the boarding school life. It was not until he entered Cambridge University that Salt began to ponder larger issues, such as the importance of ethics in society. After earning an honors degree from Cambridge, Salt was invited back to Eton as an assistant master, but was disappointed to discover that new ideas were practically banned there. Salt met and married Catherine, known as Kate, Leah Joines, the daughter of a fellow Eton master. Upon reading Howard Williams' book, The Ethics of Diet, Salt became a vegetarian, even though he admitted a vegetarian, quote, was of course regarded as a sheer lunatic in the Eton of those days, unquote. After making his dietary change, Salt began rethinking other cultural norms as well. Eventually, feeling out of sync with his Eton colleagues, he resigned from Eton at the age of 33. Inspired partially by the ideas of American writer Henry David Thoreau, the Salts simplified their life, dispersed with their servants, and moved to a worker's cottage in Surrey. With lower living expenses, they were free to focus on what really mattered to them: gardening, writing, hosting friends, and promoting humane causes. Symbols of Salt's former life were transformed into such more practical items as his master's gown was cut into strips to support vines, while his top hat shaded young vegetables in the garden. Similarly, Salt too was transformed from wealthy, high-standing Eton master to humble, controversial scholar. As Salt took the time to reflect, he noticed that in his society, which claimed to be highly civilized, two types of savagery were prevalent: violence towards animals and violence towards humans. He came to the realization that, quote, by condoning cruelty to animals, we perpetuate the very spirit which condones cruelty to men, unquote. To raise awareness of this connection, Salt began writing and had nearly 40 books that he would produce in his lifetime. His first book was a plea for vegetarianism. It eventually found its way to Mahatma Gandhi, deeply reinforcing the Indian leader's decision to be vegetarian. Among his other books, Salt's Animal Rights, considered in relation to social progress, is regarded as the best of the 18th and 19th century books on the topic. In this book, Salt explained his belief that humans and animals, as sentient beings able to experience sensation or feeling, should be allowed to live free of avoidable suffering. Further, Salt related the treatment of animals to the structure of society. He observed that in a frantic, competitive society in which profit is the main goal, the well-being of both humans and animals is usually sacrificed for that goal. Although some laws might forbid the worst forms of abuse, most people in such a society, Salt believed, quote, simply cannot and will not afford to treat animals as they ought to be treated, unquote. Still hopeful, Salt co-founded the Humanitarian League and redefined humanitarian to mean, quote, one who feels and acts humanely, not towards mankind only or the lower animals only, but towards all sentient life. In the League, Salt created campaigns to address an array of inhumane practices, including war, corporal punishment, the death penalty, the slaughter of animals for food, and the abuse of animals in cruel sports. Frequently referring to activities such as sport hunting as blood sports, the League brought this term into common usage. In addition, the League supported humane education to teach youth the importance of being thoughtful towards humans and animals. The root of all cruelty to such animals, Salt believed, was the notion that humans are superior to the rest of creation. He hoped that this superiority complex might be alleviated as science discovered biological similarities between humans and animals. Salt indicated this hope in a short poem that he penned. The poem: the motive that you'll find most strong, the simple rule, the short and long, for doing animals no wrong, is this, that you are one. Salt also exercised his wit through reductio ad nauseam, the act of pretending to defend the very thing that one opposes. When the League published The Brutalitarian, the Journal of the Sane and Strong, and The Beagler Boy, which regarding Eaton's tradition of hunting rabbits with dogs, some unknown reviewers actually praised these journals, much to Salt's amusement. The League's most successful campaign addressed the royal buckhounds, a royal tradition of hunting tame deer. Salt and his friends petitioned Queen Victoria and collected statements from prominent citizens against the hunt. Though the Queen did not act, the League knew from a letter that she opposed the hunt, and after her death, this information was made public, settling the matter and ending a 700-year-old royal tradition. Like Henry David Thoreau, whose biography he wrote, Salt too defended nature and opposed war. Seeking to protect the pastoral English countryside, Salt noted that when someone objects to a project that harms nature, people always justify the project by stressing it provides jobs. Salt countered that just because a project provides jobs does not necessarily mean that it is truly beneficial to society. After all, the same reasoning could be used to justify tearing down an important landmark, such as Westminster Abbey, to provide jobs. Similarly, Salt encouraged people to reconsider justifications for war, pointing out that the saying, quote, "If you hope for peace, prepare for war," unquote, was one of the most ridiculous concepts ever conceived. He said, quote, "Evil cannot be suppressed by evil, nor one kind of militarism extinguished by another kind of militarism. As long as man kills the lower races for food or sport, he will be ready to kill his own race for enmity. It is not this bloodshed or that bloodshed that must cease, but all needless bloodshed," unquote, illuminating a link between war and animal abuse. After World War I, Salt suffered two painful emotional blows. The Humanitarian League was forced to disband because resources were scarce after the war. And Kate, Salt's companion for 40 years, passed away. Salt mourned her death for nearly a decade. His grief was somewhat eased by writing his autobiography with the tongue-in-cheek title, 70 Years Among Savages, a good-natured critique of his own country's uncivilized ways. Getting older, Salt hired a housekeeper, Catherine Mandeville, who was highly caring and loyal. In time, Salt and Catherine married, and by all accounts enjoyed a very happy marriage. Salt received another boost when Mahatma Gandhi visited England, asked to see Salt, and opening a meeting of the London Vegetarian Society by praising him. In his last book, The Creed of Kinship, Salt summarized his credo, quote, "A belief that in years yet to come, there will be a recognition of the brotherhood between man and man, nation and nation, human and subhuman, which will transform a state of semi-savagery as we have it into one of civilization, when there will be no such barbarity as warfare or the robbery of the poor by the rich or the ill usage of the lower animals by mankind," unquote. Salt's bright mind and good humor stayed with him into old age, and he joked that he was taking so long to die, he was afraid the police would arrest him for loitering. Of course, he was not arrested, and in 1939, 88-year-old Salt passed away in Brighton, Sussex. During his burial service, a friend read the message that Salt had written in advance for this occasion. In it, Salt declared, quote, "I shall die as I have lived, rationalist, socialist, pacifist, and humanitarian." After reaffirming his belief in the creed of kinship, Salt concluded, "In this farewell, I would say a word of deep gratitude for the wonderful kindness that I have met with throughout life, whether from the comparatively few who have been in close agreement with my thoughts, or some of the many who have dissented from them," unquote. So drew to the close the life of Henry Salt, who has been called one of the least known but most outstanding champions of animals' rights, relinquishing a life of status for one of substance and advocating his creed of kinship with conviction, respect, and humor. This grandfather of animal rights movement was not only a gentleman, but also a truly gentle man. I could not find any videos about Henry Salt, so instead we'll continue with seeing a few of his famous quotes, and it'll be followed by hymn number 175 in the gray hymnal.